Hello, here we are, my friend Lucy McCarrer in the south of England and Lisette Schuitenmaker now in the north of Scotland. And we are both 70 and we are talking about that on a weekly basis, how it is to be 70, the times we've lived through. And the topic of this week is that we have both ran an event
We
last week.
have.
What did you do? What was your event,
Well, mine
Lucy?
was very uh, online. It was the launch of my book. And now, of course, I can show you my book, but I haven't got a copy next to me, of course, but that's not important. But yes, my book
What is it called? Give us
is
a
called
title.
Book Magic. And it is the subtitle is How to Become an Author Faster and Turn Your Expertise into Business Gold. So I have written 7 books about writing books, and not all of them. One is about writing fiction, but all the other ones are about writing nonfiction and books that we call business books, but they're actually books about that you can use to build your business. So, not kind of massive bestsellers necessarily, although great if they are, but books that you can use as a
Yeah.
lead generator, an authority piece, all that sort of thing. So this is this is my final book about writing books, or certainly
Okay. Do
about
you hear
writing.
this? Do you hear this? You who are listening. So we're going to keep Lucy to this. This is your final book because after 5 other books on the topic of writing your business book, so to say, what did you have to add?
Well, I think it wasn't so much adding as kind of refining
Ah,
and combining perhaps. So I really felt this was the best iteration of what I've learned because I have sat with over 1,000 entrepreneurs writing their books over the last 12 years. I have taken
over
them through. Oh
8,000.
yeah,
That
oh,
is
yeah,
so
over a
impressive.
thousand. So a lot of them have been through a program called the Key Person of Influence program, which I was the published mentor of. So it's part of a program, but not all of them. And basically, I have designed tools and techniques for positioning your book, planning your book, and then writing your book, and understanding that writing your book is not just some huge amorphous project where you sit there on your own, sort of not knowing what bits and pieces to do in what order, and that actually, I mean, it may not work for everybody, but it's not about just sitting there and being creative and waiting for the muse to come. It's about doing things.
Inspiration,
Yeah,
inspiration, please,
exactly. It's
please.
about being really strategic and doing things step by step in the right order so it doesn't become overwhelming. And the difference with this book is that I put a metaphor in through the book about gold, actually. And my premise is that all entrepreneurs and experts and coaches and consultants and speakers are sitting on a gold mine, and the gold mine is their experience and their expertise, and they have everything that they need to write a book, and they don't need to worry about coming up with some incredible new idea or something that nobody else has ever said before, because this book is about them and their work and their clients and their business and how they add value. So the gold mine is sort of I then divide the process into 4, which is prospecting, mining, extracting, and refining. So I've kind of broken down the writing process into
And do it
those.
again, prospecting,
Mining, that's where
mining,
extracting
extracting, and
and
refining.
refining. And my kind of ultimate kind of metaphor is that a book is like a gold bar. It's, you can have all this gold underground, you can have your gold mine, but it's kind of no good to anybody, and it's not very valuable to you until you have turned it into a recognizable um, artifact, basically, something that people recognize as having value and understand what it is. And I think a book and a gold bar are two, sort of similarly understood pieces of value. It's refined, it's created into this particular format, and a book is an iconic format still. The
Mm,
old printed
mm.
pages wrapped in a cardboard cover It still is that iconic format that says expert, that says authority, knowledge, and that's why it's like your gold bar. And you take it from your gold mine of knowledge and turn it into a gold bar of a book.
And you have these gold things behind you,
I
beside
do,
you. Is it
yes.
bags or pillows or
They're
yeah,
not actually, they're just tote bags.
tote bags.
For the next
Absolutely.
event,
That
I just
people can
hung them
walk
over my
around
chairs.
with their own books inside them and say,
Yes.
so this is maybe also a bit of, the alchemic process of all our what we came, the talents we came in with, and then how we honed them and then found, our business and our theory and our method. And then you kind of put that all together and you have gold and you have your book, which is quite a thing. I mean, you and I have written books, and it's an amazing thing to suddenly see out there what was in here. And for me, it was in here in bits of pieces. Some people who are consultants may have a clearer theory already, but yeah.
But yes, and I think the actual act of writing a book is very, very clarifying. You know, as you write, even if you think you know exactly what you're talking about and you have a particular process to write about, actually writing
Yeah.
about it, putting it into words, makes you much clearer and gives you fantastic ideas about how to make it better and streamline it and all of that. So, you know, even if you don't publish your book, the act of writing it is still a fantastic piece of self-development, as you
Yeah.
know. So my event was, in fact, it was an online, we called it a party, a book launch, but we had 150 people turning up on a Zoom call to share the launch with me. And then next week we have a launch in London, a physical actual launch. So I will maybe talk about that next week or the week after.
How
But
that was
yes,
fantastic. And so you're like the head gold miner, right? And you've mined all your gold about how to write books without the fuss or do it faster. You've developed this tool that is also called book magic, which is very, very useful when you want to write fiction, actually. Or could you also use it for nonfiction?
it is for nonfiction
Oh,
at the
it is for
moment. It is for
nonfiction. Okay,
nonfiction,
good.
but I am using it to write my piece of fiction in at the moment. And you can't use all the tools for fiction in it, but just the planning and the writing
Yeah.
is really helpful to be writing it like that way in there. So yes, it's all about the app as well, really. So all of my stuff was very online, but you are in a different place today. You are, as you
Yeah.
said, in the north of Scotland rather than Amsterdam, and because you have had a wonderful in-person event. So
Yeah.
so tell me about that.
Yeah, so we had the sixth iteration of the Eldest Daughter Retreat,
Which came out of a book, I'd like to say.
which came out of a book, absolutely, and which came out of an idea that I had when I was about 27, 28. And I was on my bike to my cousin, Meta. And I just want to honor Meta here because on the day that I traveled is the day that she passed. And so all these years ago, I was on my way to her on my bike. And for anybody who knows Amsterdam, I was on Leidseplein. She lived close to there. And I thought, I really like her. Is it because we're cousins? Is it because we're family and we can talk about family, in a way you can't talk with other people who kind of don't know the siblings of your parents, my father in this case. Or is it because we're both eldest daughters? She was the eldest of four. And so that idea never left me. And with it came this strange kind of longing to have a time with eldest daughters only, without what I, not very kindly call the interlopers or the intruders, those who actually made us into eldest daughters. Otherwise, we would have been single children, right? And yeah, so I really want to pay tribute to her, all this and all these 18 women coming from Belgium and the Netherlands and England and who live locally here in Findhorn. We've had a magnificent time together.
Well, tell me,
Magnificent time together.
tell me what happened. I mean, I'm going to say I'm an eldest daughter. I've always feel I should come on your retreat, and I never have. And I realised that I don't I find the idea of retreats a bit maybe a bit scary. But anyway, tell me about your retreat, and maybe I'll come next year.
Well, a retreat is a bit scary. We've had one eldest daughter be at Schiphol, and it's only small planes that fly to Inverness. So you have to go down a flight of stairs and then be bussed to the airplane. You know, it's that kind of small plane. And she was comfortably sitting, nursing her coffee, postponing going down there and missed a bus and missed a plane. And so she came the
Oh,
next day and she said it was actually, unconsciously she was not coming because she also found it
oh.
scary. And, yeah. So what do you find scary about a retreat, actually?
Well, I don't know. I realise maybe it's got, maybe I've got worse at this, but I really am a kind of homebody. And the idea, the idea of not sleeping in my own bed, I don't terribly like. I've got to go to another event this week and spend 2 nights in a hotel, and I don't look forward to it. Some people love the idea of sleeping in hotels, and I don't at all. I get slightly anxious about the idea of spending time 2, 3 days with people I don't know and that I might not like, for example. And it's also kind of, for me as an introvert, it's quite overwhelming. I don't know what I will have to do. I don't know what exercises, the
We have up
arrangers
on
may.
our sleeve. Yeah.
Exactly. And I might not want to do it. And then I always have, after a few hours, I always have this sort of feeling like I want to go home now. And I
Yeah,
can't
so
do
it's
that on a
very
retreat.
wise that you haven't come. And maybe if we keep at it long enough, I don't know, tomorrow we will attune to whether we want to do it again. There needs to be that energy to organize it and to, entice people to come. But the thing is that no, you don't know the other people, and yet we have been on a similar path. We have had similar experiences, and that is so bonding from the first moment when we do like the opening circle. Everybody shares, I am and I come from there, and I'm, in my case, the eldest of four. After me, there was a brother who made me into an eldest, and I became very shy and withdrawn and good. I became the real good girl, and he became the real bad boy in a way. And so there was that dynamic. And then a few others will say, well, I'm only the eldest of two, and I have a sister, and I treated her more like a doll. But I've
She
always,
was very
and
cute, your little sister.
yeah, Carrie, little sister. But together, like with 20 of us, we kind of paint a picture of how it has been for women and how it is in many places when a second child is born and what happens to us inwardly, but also what happens to us outwardly as our parents are more nervous. They're nervous when we go to school because they want to be proven right in their education. They want to know that they've socialized us well enough so that we can make friends and that we are intelligent enough to be able to understand and learn to read and write. And the others have much less of that pressure.
Well, they've
So
done it for us the first time, and they're worried about us and whether we're going to be happy, whether we're going to cope with
absolutely.
things. And when they realise that yes, we were okay, probably with the second children, second, third, whatever, children, it's just not such a big deal for anybody. And the second and third children are likely following in our footsteps. And so they are less anxious because we've pioneered the way for them, whether it's school or, going to whatever it is, going to places. So,
So all
yeah.
that. So to be in a room full of women who have had that same experience has actually been a dream for me. Because there is like immediate sisterhood, an immediate recognition, an immediate appreciation of all the pioneering work we have done, and many of us are still doing because we have been trained to step into the unknown. And coming to this retreat also is you step into the unknown and you can handle it much better than maybe you think you can, because we've always done that. You know,
Yeah.
you've also told stories about your school days and how you went to a different school and we always stepped into the unknown.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yes, and maybe that's why I'm scared of coming on retreats because it's another step into the unknown, and I
Yeah, and you
feel I
don't,
could
you
do
know, you don't,
without it now.
yeah. And there were people here who were a bit anxious on what is going to happen. And then, I think and I hope, but yes, I've been getting feedback and they're kind of leaving. I'm still staying on for a few days. And so we're leaving with, big, big hugs and so grateful for that the others have come so that we could also come and have our experience. Are you sending off an email?
No, no, I am.
Looks like it. It looks like you're doing something else,
No,
but
I'm just no. I got a a
yes. Okay.
notification through which I'm just removing
Okay.
from
Okay.
my
Okay. Okay.
screen. So
Yeah.
so tell me what you actually did because that will. I mean, how does the retreat work?
Yeah. So it is basically a flow of a first, a tour of the place. We are in
So what
Fintori.
time do you arrive? Tell me,
Okay.
give me the
So,
details.
so if you want to know
I do,
everything,
yes.
so the plane from Amsterdam leaves at 12 and basically also arrives at 12. So we're here at about 1:30. We're dropped at our accommodation, kind of take our rooms, and then go to the building, which is the Sunshine Room, and have registration where we, get a program and then, so we meet the others and don't remember all the names, but somebody has said, somebody who lives here is very skilled at all these things. I said, I never remember names. So she brought, stickers so we could put her name. And then
That's very
we went
eldest daughtery, isn't it?
very eldest daughter. There's always, I mean, the wonderful thing, I don't need to think of everything because the others
No,
do.
no, no, that's brilliant. No, I always like stickers and knowing who people are
Yeah.
and that sort of thing. So how many of you are there, did you say?
So Jill Emsley and I were kind of in the lead. She's the main facilitator, and I'm like the co-host and the input giver. And then there were 18 others. So
18?
three who live here locally, and three from Belgium, one person who came, one lovely younger woman who came to the previous Eldest Daughter Retreat in 23. And yeah, so 18. And we got a tour of what is called the park because we are at the Findhorn Eco Village that is close to Findhorn Village itself, which is on the Moray Firth near Inverness, like it's 40 minutes from Inverness Airport. And a community has sprung up here since 1962. And I first came here in 1998 and fell in love with this place. Or rather, I've talked about my kind of preschool, nursery time when I lived with the elves and kind of the breaking point when I went to real school. And when I came here, so I was 44, and I came here and I thought, this is the outer manifestation of my inner life.
Wow. Wow, how
Um,
wonderful.
it was mind-boggling. And so I immediately thought, I want to immerse myself in this way of being, of listening to the greater good, of co-creating with the intelligence of nature, and to seeing work as love in action. That's basically the three principles here of practice. And so I called Jos from a payphone then and told him this. We had just started to live together 4 years before that, or 3 years before that even. And he said, "Well, you've got to do what you've got to do." But in the end, I came here often and became part of the board of trustees of the educational charity that has not survived COVID. So anyway, we're in the program. So we took a tour of the park so people basically know where the buildings are and how the roads are. We ended at a shop because many of us were in little bungalows and shopped for breakfast.
And you can the village can accommodate 18 visitors.
Oh, the village accommodates 200
Oh,
visitors.
wow, gosh. Oh, it's really big then. In my imagination, it's a sort of, it's a small collection of huts in the
Well,
wilds of Scotland,
it
which is
used to be in the
clearly not
60s.
correct.
It was a collection of caravans. And but over time, as many people came here and settled and wanted to live here and started families, there's
Wow. Yeah.
several three generations families living here. So it is a place of older and newer buildings.
And it can put up
And
lots of
there's
people.
a community shop. Yeah, there's about 500 people living here, and then some living
Gosh.
in the village, and then some living in the next village, and then some living in the slightly bigger village over there, and all connected to this community, many of them volunteering to man the visitor center or work in the gardens or clear the woods or come to sing in
Amazing.
the morning or perform in the Universal Hall. So anyway, we did a tour of the park and went to our bungalow. Yeah, did our shopping, went to our bungalows, had a lovely meal in our sunshine room, and then had the first opening circle in which, yeah, we all basically shared, how many are you the eldest? And basically this time we did it in pairs, and so we then introduced our other person, and then at the same time you already have a buddy. Like
Yeah.
so arriving the next morning, we as the leaders don't have to go, is everybody here? But everybody can just look out for their buddy or let their buddy know I'm slightly late. I'm still having a coffee at the cafe and it isn't ready yet and coming. And so, on the first day, it's basically like a you process.
Yeah.
So, 3 days, the first day is kind of, diving in.
Getting to know everybody.
Yeah, getting to know everybody, also kind of making a map of say a challenging situation. And it can be a challenging situation at work or a challenging situation in your family or with a person, with your neighbor, with whoever. And you kind of make a chart of where everybody is. You put yourself in the middle and then make a chart and kind of say difficult person, ally, go-to person. And then you make a chart of your family and lo and behold, basically those patterns will be more or less the same. And so when you look at your original family, you will get insight also in the role you are playing out, the thing you're playing out and again with your neighbor or your manager or your, I don't know who, son-in-law. I don't know. So that's kind of a very insightful exercise. And
Yeah.
again, you share with three, so you get to know two other people. And we
So you're
also
mostly working in small groups then.
yeah, so it's like all the time kind of work with yourself, share with one or two people, then come back to the plenary and not necessarily share what you said, but was this useful? In what way was this useful? Does anybody have an insight that is like, so wow, wow, now that I see this, I can go forward like that. And so
Fantastic. So can you pick a couple of insights and tell us what they were? Something that maybe was new to you as an eldest daughter that hasn't come up before, or just something that's reiterated
well, what
time
I
and time
saw, for
again.
instance, is um what came up for me was an issue of trust. A thing I'm noticing about young families and about younger people I work with is how much they enjoy time with their children. And I'm really sure my parents enjoyed time with us, but they never said so. And I've came out of my youth with a sense of, even later when my mother she was alone, she lived alone, she couldn't do anything. When the phone rang, she would go, and then she would pick up the phone. She would have this moment of irritation, whereas it was lovely of people to call her, and she loved to chat on the phone. But that moment of irritation is also what I have come out of my youth with, that we were more like a bit of an irritant
A bit of a
instead of
nuisance.
And so seeing how people now so enjoy being with their children. Oh, we're going on a holiday. We'll be together for 2 weeks. Like, wow. So yeah, to map that out and to can then kind of see, but also see how I have created similar situations. Like now I've created a situation in a board where I have like a man who has very similar energy to my brother. And whereas my brother lives in a completely different world, he's been here to Findhorn and found it, rockety and rickety and strange in places, very vegetarian, so to say. But and yeah, so my sense of how he sees me is, of course, never how he sees me, and also that varies. But I have manifested a situation, a work situation, where there is a man with very much the same energy, even the same kind of body, a little overweight, who really supports me.
Gosh,
Who
that is
came
so
into
interesting.
that organization because he wanted to support me. And so I have seen, I wasn't aware of how healing that actually is for me to experience
I
that.
see. Yes, so you haven't set up a similar sibling rivalry
No,
situation. You've set up the healed version of that, which is brilliant.
absolutely. Well, we can totally, work together, and I bring in very different things from him, but we come from this, even if I momentarily don't really see what you mean, I trust that you want to help me and that I want to understand you and you want to understand me and not like reject me as some oozy woozy woo woo person. So that yeah, it really moves me to feel how healing that is. That was a lovely insight for me of the first day.
That's lovely. Yes. Yes, I had an insight like that sort of it was actually in the middle of my 70th birthday party and I was just thanking everybody. I don't know if you remember, I was thanking
I
everybody
know.
for the people who had spoken. And the two men I work most closely with, who happen to
I
be
remember
around
that
the same
moment.
age as my sons, I suddenly said, without any kind of having thought it, I just said it. I said, "Oh, it's really funny. I've always had two little boys." And then I thought, "Oh no, that's a terribly rude thing to say. I don't
But
treat
they
them as
loved
little
it. They
boys."
waved to you
They
and
were
said, "Yes, here we are. We are your little brothers."
I
So
know it was just it just came to me like that, and I couldn't not say it. And it's because I've had two younger brothers, two sons, two grandsons first, and it's sort of like a
two
pat. And I
colleagues.
didn't really mean it for them. It was a pat. It was what I saw as a pattern for
Yeah.
myself that I somehow kind of put myself in a position where I'm working with two younger brothers,
Yeah.
perhaps, or something. So
Yeah, so
yes,
there
that's
you go.
fascinating.
So it was a surprise for you then, how we recreate, and it was a surprise. Or yeah, and a really sense of gratitude that I've been able to create a situation that kind of heals the idea of, being strange or anyway. So that was one. So that was the first day, basically. And then we had a free evening, and some of us where there was a movie here on the room next door. But I thought, oh, that's too intense. But some went there, some went to the hot tub. I sat and had teas with friends in a adjacent bungalow. And then the next morning, we participated in the Sunday ritual as it is celebrated here. So that is with
That.
sacred dance and with singing and with meditation. And yeah, it was really beautiful to because I wanted, to have the eldest daughter retreat, but also the eldest daughter retreat, we hold it at the Findhorn Eco Village, which is a community with this threefold practice, right? And so that was lovely. And then I interviewed my friend Mari, who came here in 1976 and started the Waldorf School and was a school teacher, and then was asked to join management. And she was like, and then she was a superb chair of the management team. And then she became a trust onto the board of trustees, where I was also. And so we kind of interwove her life and her her roles and how this place from 62 has grown and shrunk and morphed and become a whole, you know, village with a council and with a homeowners association and with a village shop and with the community building and with, all of what little villages have and all
It's
the
amazing. I
intricacies of
mean,
that.
really, really such an achievement. And well, two things. First, what you said
Yeah,
about the kind of Sunday morning ritual, that scares me. That, kind of dancing with
absolutely. You're not the only
that's
one. So, of course, on the Sunday, we said, we invite you to come if you want to go for a walk, if you want time alone. Please, it's an invitation. And it is, a way to support this community doing this. Also, if you come and you don't want to participate in the dancing, please sit. You will not be the only one. There will be other people sitting there just holding space. And you can be, a participant, or you can be a person there who kind of takes note of what happened.
yes, a watcher. That's what I
A
would want to be.
watcher.
Yes, I would.
Absolutely.
I'd be happy to go along and be a fly
Yeah.
on the wall to see other people, to maybe have my own experiences, but not share them
Absolutely.
necessarily.
No,
That
but we
that
don't
that makes
force
it.
anybody into sacred dance. It wouldn't work. You would fall over your feet. It wouldn't work. And there's many people, and you can sit, higher up and then, wherever.
That's
And so, yeah, and that afternoon, what did we do that afternoon? We did another exercise. We kind of looked at kind of a behavior that we think is very good of ourselves.
oh
We
oh
are with that. It's very
all of
good.
the things
And
I'm proud
so,
of.
and then we look at someone who, according to our high standards, is like not up to par or is really horrible. And then Jill led us into can there be a homeopathic doses of what that person is doing that we find highly irritating wrong? Can there be? And she asked us to kind of make a movement. And so I made a movement like this because this person kind of shoves everything away and
Okay,
doesn't
if you're only listening and not looking, Lisette is pushing her pushing her
yeah,
arm to the
oh,
side, sort of
pushing my arm to the
somebody
side.
away.
And then I thought, sometimes it would be really good for me to clear my desk a little of all the clutter and all the little things that I can do and concentrate on what really matters. So that was kind of a clarity I got out of that. Yeah, thank you for describing the visual. And then we had dinner again, lovely dinner, and then we went to Jill's house, who lives in a compound, a beautiful houses at the kind of edge of this settlement, and there's a fireplace there. And it was actually a beautiful night. We could see the stars. And so whoever wanted to could throw something into the fire and say, I would like to be free of this behavior or that. Now, what did I threw it into the fire and now I don't even know what it was, but I knew exactly what I was going to throw into the fire. And then we just had stories and someone had brought their flute and played and some people went in to see an eco house from the inside, and they never came back because they ended up talking, the three of them, and having a cup of tea and said they'd had the most amazing conversation between them. So that was the Sunday. And then on the Monday, every weekday, this community starts as a meditation from 6:30 to 7:30 that I hardly ever have gone to. Mike Scott of the Water Boys. I don't know if you know him, this pop star who lived here. He's made an album called Universal Hall, and he really describes in song. And he used to go sit meditate there too, in silent. Yeah, so it's actually in silent fellowship, and he describes beautifully on that album, which is called Universal Hall, the life here. But at 8 o'clock, there is what's called Teze singing, where people gather for 25 minutes of singing kind of devotional songs in what is called a nature sanctuary, tiny little building, little hobbit building, and you huddle together and bring your voices together in harmony, which is just a lovely way to start a day. And then, so some of us did that, those who wanted to, others went to the beach or had a sleep or whatever they did. And then there's communal meditation. And so we started at 9:30 yesterday with also kind of a round of how is everybody. And it is also was always interesting to, lots of things are stirring and then somebody else says something, you're like, oh yeah, oh, I thought of that too, but I'd already, kind of forgotten it. So that was like a beautiful circle.
So was it
And
all
then
good, the responses, or had anybody kind of come up against something difficult and was finding,
people did come up against something difficult. Oh, I think what I forgot to mention is on the Sunday afternoon, we were kind of ready to let the group go. And then some said, we know this community has gone through great upheaval, through COVID, but also through arson. The
oh,
two main buildings, two hearts, the spiritual heart of the community, which was the sanctuary, the main sanctuary, and the communal heart, the social heart of the community, which is the community center, were burnt down because of disgruntlement about how yeah, when there was COVID, there were no guests, there was no income, and the Fintorn Foundation had to let people go, which of course was a very tough process because you couldn't talk to people face to face. And I don't know exactly how it went. I was really happy that, you know, it might sound strange that I was not in the chair. I mean, I was really grateful that I didn't have to handle it, but also it would have been horrible if I had been in Amsterdam having to handle it. But it's been a traumatic process. And
mhm.
and one person, you know, so burnt down those two places, and perceptive eldest daughters kind of said, we feel there is so with the rebirth and with all the, the phoenix rising from that and the community kind of stepping up and taking up responsibility for buildings that were forever in the care of the educational charity, the Finturn Foundation. And so we had a beautiful conversation with the four women who live here and who all have their, story. Mari Hollander, the woman I spoke about, a kindergarten teacher who became, a person who knows everything about everything and who in her 70s is still so involved in everything. And people stop me on the runway and say, nothing, this could all not have happened if she hadn't, stepped up again and taken the reign. And so she spoke, she lives right across from where the community center, I just look at that empty space now where the community center used to be. And so it was a beautiful moment of, eldest daughters or this circle kind of holding space for grief to be voiced, for that pain of whenever an organization that you hold dear, comes to the end of its existence, and it brings layoffs and it brings, all kinds of change with it. So that was really, I think, at the heart. And yeah,
Well, that's absolutely
it was
amazing.
very, very beautiful circle.
It sounds, I'm I'm
Yeah.
I'm kind of thinking maybe I could come if you have another one next year. Maybe this sounds more that something that I could actually cope with and not be
You
too
do.
anxious about. It,
Yeah. And then yesterday, Jill proposed, after we had a circle, just saying, how are you? How are you doing? What is moving inside you? And, various things, people, various stages of their lives. There were people, women in their 30s,
oh yes, that's
40s,
what I was going
50s.
to ask. What is the sort of age spread
Yeah.
of the
Yeah, so
retreat?
this time I think the youngest would have been about 35, 37. Last time we had one young woman in her 20s, but it was all, and age was not at all a topic.
No, no, I'm sure it wasn't,
Yeah.
but I'm just interested,
Yeah, yeah. No, it was
the
really a spread.
tracks.
And I wasn't even the oldest. So
That's always
Yeah,
nice.
so yesterday morning I was feeling also the grief of my cousin passing, and I was still somewhat with the grief of this community kind of getting to me and seeing this empty spot there. And so I thought, I don't really want to do an exercise. I'd rather go and walk to the sea. So four of us did, and someone else, a woman still having her period was kind of nursing her period, and two others had another walk. And the ones who did the exercise with Jill said it was. And, there were breakthroughs there. And I don't know about them because we didn't really share the content of any of that. But I could just see. And what also happened is that a friend of mine who works in architecture, and she'd come here, thinking this is like utopia, this is like paradise. And, like everywhere, there's kind of some building material lying around here, or there's no trash or anything, but it is like, and some buildings look dilapidated because they were built in the 60s or early 70s, and they've been painted over and over again, but they are dilapidated. And so she had voiced some disappointment. And then yesterday morning, it was like, there's a song here that says, through the eyes of love, you are perfect. Through the eyes of love, you are free. Through the eyes of love, you're beautiful. I'm you and you are me. And so she had come into that space where you can look with the eyes of love and see, the ongoing experiment and the ongoing effort. And it is not perfect. And it is perfect, as how it is. So that was a very sweet thing to happen. And then yesterday afternoon, we closed off with something that comes out of the great game of transformation that in itself comes out of this community. With an intention. How do we go back into the world? What is helpful? What is an insight that may help you? Also, yeah, what you found, bring it back. What could set you back? How could you work with that? And what is an angel or a quality that you can draw upon to help you with that? And so that was the retreat.
Well, it does sound very lovely, and I really,
Ah,
I should. No, actually, I mean, I really congratulate you, Lisette, for having, set this up originally, for having written the book, for having brought all these people. I really didn't realize it was so big. I thought maybe you had, half a dozen, 10 people. 18 people is a big retreat, and that's fantastic
yeah,
that it attracts so many people, and it's
yeah,
wonderful. So I hope you have another one because I will seriously consider coming next time if you do. So yeah, that's
yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah,
Well,
we have a debrief tomorrow, and then Jill and I will kind of attune to whether we have the energy, but also whether we feel there is an upswell of people wanting to come. And I do have a list of, people who for various reasons couldn't come this
right,
time. So who
right.
knows? I will know more after tomorrow.
Well, put me on your list in pencil.
I will.
Well, there we go. We've both had an event. We're both 70. We've both run events this week. Yours considerably bigger than mine, but still, it
You
just
think
shows.
so? Well, over more days, but let's not compare. Let's just
No,
see it as
let's
a
not.
mosaic. There's smaller
Let's
pieces,
not.
bigger pieces. Together we lay the mosaic of the phoenix rising.
Yes, yes. No, that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Hey, well, I hope you have a safe journey home from Finland,
Yes, I'm still here for a few days, and then
and we'll talk next week.
we'll talk next week. Bye.
Bye bye.